Hello there. What's going on, everybody? Just doing a live Q&A tonight. It's been a pretty busy week for me, so figured I'd just kind of wind down, hang out with you guys, just have a live chat. Wearing my Lando is my homeboy shirt tonight. It's a custom one. I don't even know where it came from. My wife got it for me. But yeah, so we're just kind of hanging out, and I kind of wanted to talk about some of the stuff that's been going on because there wasn't a whole lot of news actually this week, but considering we had so much the past couple of weeks, it's been time to kind of process everything. So I've been doing a lot of painting. Been painting some of my Legion stuff. I pulled out the airbrush to do my tank. I'm gonna be doing my airspeeder pretty soon, or the land speeder rather. And let's see. All the new Overwatch figures came out, so I started reviewing those, and those are awesome. Endgame came out last night and comes out this weekend, which is huge. No spoilers in chat, please. No talking about Endgame. Nothing even remotely spoiler-ish. I will ban you from chat if you do that. But yeah, it was amazing. We'll probably do an Endgame. I might talk about Endgame, but I don't think it'll be until after the weekend, at least maybe next week, after people have had an opportunity to see it, because it's really, really good. Maybe my favorite movie of all time. But we are not going to talk about any spoilers for that. I mean, that's just bad form anyway, and I think you guys are actually pretty cool. So, I doubt any of you would do that. But dude, these things, man, I'm like, hold on, I want to show them off a little bit. I'm going to show them off a little bit. I'm like crazy about these things. Like, I don't know if you guys play Overwatch at all, but like, Reinhardt is freaking huge. I've got Tracer and Lucio and Pharah and Mercy and Sombra and Ana and Soldier 76. And yes, I did see Endgame. That's my little IMAX Endgame thing. And then there's the Maul and Obi-Wan that are the part of the recent giveaway. So, yep. Oh my goodness. I'm trying to move everything back here. Trying to get set back up. All right. No, I'm totally digging those. But yes. So anyway, yeah. Well, anyway, so I'm gonna start taking questions here in a little bit, but I do want to talk about. So I recently reviewed Outer Rim, and I think there was some confusion on me basically, like, looking at a lot of the comments. I think a lot of people thought the game was bad. And I don't think that's the case at all. So I kind of want to start off tonight kind of talking about Outer Rim a little bit, because it's not often that I give reviews that aren't really good. And that tends to be because I'm very selective on what I review. I turn down a pretty good amount of requests to review things. Like people like, Kickstarters and new board games, and, review this, review that. And a lot of times I turn stuff down if I think it's something that I wouldn't like. I tell them it's not a good fit for me or for my channel, or if it's something that I don't think would resonate with my particular audience. Sometimes I'll step outside of my comfort zone a little bit. Like I've been doing some of the Overwatch unboxings and posting those, and those nobody wants to watch those, so I'm probably not going to do those anymore. At least for a while. but it's like sometimes I'll step outside of my comfort zone a little bit. But for the most part, I turn down stuff that I'm not interested in. So that's one reason most of my reviews are positive, because I usually only review things that I happen to already like. Now, sometimes I'll get something, that I have no idea. Like, it's kind of like a blind, hey, review this. And every once in a while, like, especially if it's from like a known publisher or whatever, like we'll take a look at what was that last one from Awaken Realms. That one is it's great. It's just it's not for me. Like, I didn't back it, I can tell it's a quality game. There's a lot of work put into it, but I didn't, it wasn't one that I would want to be playing quite a bit. But so in the case of Outer Rim, it is a game that I bought it. I beta tested it also, so I knew it was a game that was going to be up my alley. And so I bought it day one at Celebration. So it's definitely ranks in there as a game that I'm very interested in, and I will play again. But having played the finished product a number of times, I was like, it's not perfect. So that's why I gave it a 7 out of 10. Somebody said wait, you're telling me the two things you don't like are the lack of player interaction and the fact that you can kill a player over and over again? No, that's not the top two things that I don't like. Those were two anecdotal things. There is a lack of player interaction. However, there's one character that can kill a player over and over and over again. So for the other 7 characters that don't have that ability, there's a definite lack of player interaction. But those weren't my two gripes, because the one character being more of a PvP character, if you don't want that in your games, just say, hey, nobody pick Bosk. That's easy enough. That's a small thing. But it's also easily remedied by a house rule. Granted, you shouldn't have to house rule stuff, but my main two gripes is there's nothing for you to do when it's not your turn, and I think there should be something as simple as moving a patrol. Maybe at the beginning of each player's turn, everybody moves one patrol, in one space in a direction of their choice. That would make patrols a little more meaningful, and also the size of the patrols was my second one. They're a little too big, and they take up. And some of the nav points are too close together, so when you have the patrol, it's hard to tell which nav point it's on because they're all so close together, and the patrol token is so big relative to this distance between the nav points that it makes the board state a little bit confusing. And that's my biggest. Those two are my biggest complaints. Those aren't deal breakers, though. There's ways around that. And you can homebrew the everybody moves a patrol thing. That's actually a cool idea. That you can homebrew. A solution for ships, maybe you use, instead of the patrol, you use little plastic ships from Armada or X-Wing or something like that. You could use a little CR-90 and just take this part off and put that down instead of, or just get a set of mill miniatures things and really pimp out your game. You could totally do that, fix a lot of the issues. So there's really no major issues with this game. There are a few mediocre issues, but the fun factor is still there. It's still got the theme. It's still on brand. It's still multiplayer, which is a huge aspect to me. And it's got some fun. So it's definitely a game to play again and to try to master. But I think the game is easily expandable, and I'm hoping the expansions for it do address some of my concerns. So. Hot toys. I have heard of Hot Toys. So I'm going to go to take some questions now. Now I have heard of Hot Toys. Somebody during my some of my live streams at Celebration kept asking me if Hot Toys had announced anything, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't see Hot Toys there anywhere, and I didn't. I have no idea. I didn't even know that they had a presence at the con. But I apologize. It was one of those questions I think was asked over and over again, and I just didn't get, because I was streaming from my phone, and the way streaming works on Yahoo on your phone, when somebody says something, you get a quick little pop up, and then it vanishes. And so if I was looking away, if I was looking where I was going and didn't see it at that instant, I missed it. So sorry about that. Let's see here. Let's see. Let's take some questions. Recent viewer of the channel, you're now hooked on Armada and X-Wing. Getting your 10-year-old son into them is proving fun. Awesome. My oldest is 9, and yeah, I'm getting him into tabletop gaming a little bit more, and it's awesome. It's all the difficulties you went through with parenthood, or finally you're starting to be able to reap the fruits of all. Now you've raised a human being, and now you get to play with them. So that's awesome. Song of Ice and Fire. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of good things about it. I don't know if it's a game that I'm really, if I want to start a whole other miniatures game, especially because like that universe doesn't have like all as many of the big things that I'd want. I mean, it does have dragons and it does have a few like mythical creatures, but I think if I'm going to play, a fantasy tabletop game, I want it to be really loaded with mythological creatures, like, I guess maybe like Age of Sigmar. I don't really know. I haven't played Age of Sigmar. I don't know how many creatures there are in there, but I want all the D&D kind of races and all of that crazy fantasy stuff. And Song of Ice and Fire is kind of in between. You hope there are new titles in Outer Rim. I absolutely do. I hope that as well. And I think the game is very easily expandable. Like when you look at it right now, you've got a couple of you've got like 2 characters who have 3 skills and only 2 strength, and everybody else has 3 strength and only 2 skills. And so I feel like there's definitely a spot for more characters to have like maybe 2 strength and 3 skills, or maybe some different balance. Maybe somebody's got really good skills or really good starting attributes, and they only start with 1 skill. Maybe there's ways to kind of tip the balance of the original original characters a little bit. You could even add new ways to gain fame, or like an alternative to gaining fame. Like maybe I was thinking of something like spies would be a cool expansion for Outer Rim. Basically, it would offer an alternative way to win. You could spy, basically espionage. And espionage would gain you fame, so you can do espionage stuff. Because I wouldn't want to add a whole another tracker. Like if you were going the espionage route, you would effectively, you would gain. I don't know if you'd have to. I don't know. There's a couple of ways they could make it work, but I'm thinking basically. You would be spying and pulling undercover work. And that was a way for you to bring other well-known characters into the Outer Rim, like Leia disguised as Boosh, when she's in her bounty hunter disguise. Agent Callus, who's an ISB agent, but he's undercover, so he's posing as, like a scum and villainy kind of character, like things like that. But they're out there to spy, and maybe they have different interactions with the patrols, and and they can take espionage jobs and things like that. That would be kind of a cool way for them to gain fame. So basically, they were gaining fame by doing the spying stuff, and maybe like as far as like lore goes, maybe they Callus is like, my lord Emperor, the Hutts are actually plotting against you, and I've found their secret meeting place. And the Emperor is so pleased that he then, drops a bunch of credits, your way, or, like basically pulls some strings, and all of a sudden your name is all on the news, and now you're more famous because, he made it happen to kind of support, to reward you, and so that's, kind of one way to be able to do things. But yeah, so I would like to see more of that. I'd like to see more ships. Another thing I think is actually kind of cool about Outer Rim is there's EU stuff in there. Like, you've got the HWK and the Moldy Crow. And I think that's an interesting aspect, because they were asked at Celebration, like, can you guys still pull from Legends, and can we expect to see like more ships from Legends and stuff like that in our games? And basically, the long and the short of it is they said, yeah, we can pull from Legends, but for the most part, we're trying to concentrate our efforts on what's canon, on the canonical timeline and the Prime timeline. And that makes sense. That's pretty much what we all thought. But it was nice to hear that they can, that they confirmed they're allowed to pull from Legends. And sure enough, they did it right here in Outer Rim with the HWK. Now, this is a new game. Like, you could expect that, like, all right, the HWK was an X-Wing before Disney bought them out, so that was still canon. And the HWK was at least in production for Armada when the buyout happened, so it was still, it was already approved by that point. So the fact that, that the HWK is now all of a sudden showing up in brand new games, that tells you that they're allowed to pull from Legends. And that opens up a whole new slew of questions, ideas, and, hey, what are they going to do? I do think if they do continue to pull from Legends, it'll be the more popular stuff. Like the HWK is like there used to be a system of canon in the EU, and it would be like things that were like high canon, medium canon, low canon, and like high canon was like near canon, like you had the highest canon, which was the movies, and then you had like that next tier down, which was basically the same as canon, and that was like the stuff that was most closely related to the movies, and the stuff that was like really really close, like the Timothy Zahn, like the Thrawn stuff, the original Thrawn trilogy, and gosh, I think like Shadows of the Empire was also high canon, and so like. And these things are also, I think, closest to the top when it applies to Legends, because they've pulled a lot of these ships. Like the HWK, the ship model itself is canon, and it is in the new canon, but the Moldy Crow, specifically with Kyle Katarn and Jan Ors, are no longer. The same thing goes with the YT-2400. The YT-2400 is absolutely canon, and, with Iron Squadron and Star Wars Rebels. But the Outrider and Dash Rendar are not. So like they're very very close, and they're pulling these things. I would love to see all those characters again too. I would love to see Kyle Katarn, Jan Ors, and Dash Rendar, and and Mara Jade and all that stuff. So it's kind of cool that they're doing that, and I would love to see them put together a whole EU kind of board game, like where you can take canon characters and Legends characters and have them fight it out in some kind of what if scenario battle royale. Would love that. All right. So, is anybody parents? Yeah. Well, I've talked about my kids and my family plenty enough, so I think you guys know that. Do I think we're going to get any Armada news on May the 4th? News? I don't know if it'll be like news. I think. I think what is likely is that maybe we'll see a preview of something. We may get. We have heard the Superstar Destroyer will be out this summer, and so when does summer officially start? July? I think it's July, August, September. July. I think. So we might have a shipping update on the SSD, which might be nice. That would count. That would qualify as news. I think we might be getting a look at the Rebellion in the Rim. I expect Rebellion in the Rim, since it's looking at Q3, August isn't, I basically Gen Con is when I'm really expecting us to get our first glimpse of actual news. Like, I don't think they're going to spoil the 2 other ships they're working on for Armada on May the 4th. I think the other 2 ships that they have in the works for Armada will probably be spoiled at Gen Con, because they've announced them twice already. They've already teased them twice. So if they spoil those before Gen Con, what can they possibly talk about at Gen Con? If they've just started working on the Clone Wars, and look how long it took them to announce it for Legion after announcing it. Like, that was Gen Con up until like a month ago at Adepticon. So you're looking at like 6 months at least, and from when they first announced it to when it is ready to be kind of showcased. So I don't think we'll have like a Clone Wars Armada preview at Gen Con. If anything, they might be prepared to talk about it a little bit, like have a few questions, like a little bit of Q&A we might get. Like if they're gonna do, like we could probably find out if they're going to have a core set specifically for the clones and the separatists, or if they'll have an essentials pack and then just have to buy all the ships a la carte. I think realistically, from a business perspective, they'll have a separate core set, because if they're looking to attract a whole new fan base to this game, or to Armada, they're going to want to give them an entry point that reflects the Clone Wars. So I think it's pretty reasonable to expect a different core set for Armada. But alternatively, I would like for them to also to do an essentials kit for people who get in and aren't sure what they want to fly. Let's see. But yeah. So I don't. May the 4th, we might get a little preview article or something like that. But I don't think it'll be anything too big. Let's see. About to start playing Legion. What are the pros and cons to starting Empire and Rebels? They're fairly balanced. Like when you're first starting out, I think the Rebels are the more balanced faction. They have the Z6 Trooper, which is really, really great. Just if we're just looking at the core set, whereas the Empire has more of a variety. Like if you just compare it to the core set, like Rebels are all Speed 2, whereas the Empire has the Speed 3, the Speed 3 Speeder, the Speed 2 Troopers, and the Speed 1 Vader. So they were like the Empire is more sporadic, where the Rebels are a little bit more consistent. Although the Rebels have the worst defense, and the Empire has the better defense. The Rebels have the better offense, and so there's like a lot of it's a lot of like rock scissors paper between the two factions. I generally kind of like the Rebels in the core set a little better than the Empire in the core set, but that is just me. It's it's really kind of it's anybody. I would say just go with whatever you really like. I'm a big fan of Luke Skywalker, though. He's a lot of fun to play. And Vader's all right too, but I think Vader will be better in like something like the tank. And there's another question about have I used my tank yet, my Gav tank. I have not. I was supposed to. Since I've been back from Celebration, I haven't gotten a Legion game in. I was supposed to do some Legion gaming, and it turned into Outer Rim gaming instead, which is fine, and it was for a good cause, because it helped me get enough games in to be able to talk about it, because I don't like to just play one game and do a review. I like to play several, and to try to get a better feeling, because one game could always be, I picked a bad character, or my dice rolled really poorly that game. So I like to play like 4 games or so if I can manage that to try to get a review in. So I have not actually gotten to use the tank yet, but let's just say my name is on the playtester credits in there, so I have a pretty good idea of how the tank plays, and they're interesting. All right, let's see. Keen about the new hinted Armada Rebel ships for. The Rebel ship for Q4. Any thoughts on that? So they said hopefully by the end of the year. So it looks like Q4 for the new Armada stuff. I'm sure they will announce it at... honestly, if they're announcing it at Gen Con, if they're going to give us our first look at Gen Con, that's something... Well, they could, in theory, announce what the next ships are on May the 4th. But Fantasy Flight... I'll have to pull up my calendar now. Because what day is May the 4th? May the 4th is on a Saturday. So they're not going to announce anything on a Saturday. If anything, it would be May the 3rd, which is a Friday. Because FFG doesn't... they have dropped articles on a Saturday before, but they usually don't. So I could see it even being like, May the 10th, which is the following Friday after May the 4th. And they have actually notoriously dropped big information like a couple of days after May the 4th. And we were like, guys, why didn't, that's happened before. Like a whole new wave was spoiled or whatever. So I could see maybe, a new Armada wave being, spoiled. And I'm actually really curious if they're going to call it Wave 8. Or if they're going to consider the Superstar Destroyer Wave 8. But yeah, so... A sizable ship for the Rebels means to me it's probably large, but it could also be medium or huge. Sizable. Some people in the comments and in like the Armada Discord have said that all we know about sizable is that means it's probably not small, because that's he didn't want to see something big is coming again. But sizable could be a huge ship, and if so, it would probably be the Viscount. Or Viscount. It looks like to me it's spelled like discount, so I like saying Viscount, but I've been informed it's pronounced Viscount. But yeah, like the huge Mon Calamari epic ship. I'm not a big fan of them doing that, just because I feel like now that we're getting Clone Wars, the Rebels don't need a huge ship. They're not one of the factions that we see with a huge ship. We are going to see, I would imagine we will see the Separatists get a huge ship, if not 2. And that being like the Malevolence would be a huge ship. It's not as big as the Superstar Destroyer, but it's still in that ballpark. So it definitely qualifies as a huge ship. The Lucrehulk, definitely, definitely at least a large ship, but it's bigger than an ISD, so I could see it potentially being a huge ship. I would see if they do sequel factions, the First Order can get a huge ship. Both the Supremacy may be absurdly too big, because that's way bigger even than Super Star Destroyer. So I think the Supremacy is outside of the scale of the game, unless it were like a playmat. And actually that would make sense. You could do like a 6x3 playmat with the Supremacy being like one side of the board. And that's, whatever. If you're looking for a scenario to play, that's fine. But the Dreadnoughts are perfect for something like that. The Dreadnought is not as big as the SSD, so you could still... Anything that is less than the size of a Super Star Destroyer, I feel is fine to fit into Armada. Now, granted, they squeeze the scales, and it's a sliding scale, but and that's fine. It was always a sliding scale, so that works. But I'd love to see a Dreadnought. And even the Resistance could get a huge ship, because the Radis was what I would say qualifies as a huge ship. It was much bigger than an SSD. I'm sorry, than an ISD, but not as big as a Super Star Destroyer. But it was really, really big. So I think, if you want the good guys to have access to a huge ship, I think the Radis is the way to go, and I think you do that with the Resistance. But I don't know. Who knows? You see Camel Up in the background. Love that game. That's a fun game. I haven't played it in a while, but it is it's a fun kind of light game. I have a lot of games I haven't been able to play. I need to do more game nights. That would be fun. It's hard when you have a lot of kids to just have people over and game like all the time. Do you think they will announce the Clone Wars ships? I don't think we're going to see those for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like maybe a January or like a February announcement. I think what they'll do is I think they'll hold off all throughout December, not really giving us much in the way of Clone Wars information, and then probably in January we'll start getting some teasers for the Armada Clone Wars. Just because they want to promote the things that they want you to buy over the holiday season. So all of December, it's going to be articles and advertisements promoting what's on sale in December. So my prediction is January for some Clone Wars announcements for Armada. Like some actual solid stuff there. Let's see. We're looking for some more questions here. With Armada, X-Wing, Legion, and all of their own IPs, do you think Fantasy Flight have stretched themselves too far? I honestly can't answer that. It seems... I'll try. I mean, it may seem like that sometimes because you see so much product, but at the same time, some of this stuff is just coming out routinely. Like Legion, 2 expansions every month since the game's come out. So there's obviously no hiccups there. X-Wing has had a pretty steady stream of new contents with 2nd edition. They've launched a whole new X-Wing, and then they've had a pretty steady stream. Not every month, but their waves are much bigger, so you still had about the same amount of stuff come out. Armada's gone slower, and a big part of that is the SSD. Something went wrong with it, and I don't know if it was like a mold broke or... I've heard rumors, and of course they're just rumors, but basically something went wrong with manufacturing, and they had to just say, no, do it all over again. But I believe the current plan is that they've got it right now, and it's being printed and everything, and it'll be coming now. So, and because at Star Wars Celebration, they actually had 2 Super Star Destroyers. They had the original one from Gen Con, plus they had a production copy. And the production copy, they talked about at the panel, like one of them even made this off the cuff kind of remark of like, yeah, so I've seen it, I've seen the box it comes from, and it was, we in our production copy, sample, and it was amazing. So, now production copy sample, like one of those early ones, is basically the same thing that's going to be coming off of the assembly line. So, and that tells me that that's probably, if that's what they were bringing to the con, then that's good. And honestly, it looked just like the prototype, so it looked really good. but they didn't have the cardboard on there. Oh man, I got to tell you guys something too. This was interesting, and I don't want to read into this too much, but like some of the FFG OP crew were down in the game room at Star Wars Celebration when I was there, and they said this is potentially kind of juicy because they said, you know, in response to me asking like, hey, can you guys make a call upstairs? Can we get a Super Star Destroyer down here for the Armada demo table because it will really attract a lot of people? And they're like, no, we can't put the thing on the table yet. And I'm like, why can't we put it on the table yet? And they're like, well, you know, it hasn't all been spoiled yet. And I'm like, it has all been spoiled. And they're like, I don't think so. And I'm like, I do think so. And they're like, I don't think so. And I'm like, I do. You know, we kind of went back and forth. So that basically, it could have been that, like, I don't even remember who I'm talking, so I'm not naming anybody. But it was somebody who was just like, I'm pretty sure we haven't spoiled everything for the Super Star Destroyer yet. And in the back of my head, I'm like, you totally did. You did almost a year ago, back right after Thanksgiving, in that Game Trader magazine. Every single ship card, every single upgrade card, 100% of it was spoiled in that magazine. And then the only stuff we had after that was we had questions about its rules and how it was gonna, like, how you were gonna actually use it on the table. And so that was interesting because that made me think, maybe there's something else going on here. So either they've snuck some more stuff into this expansion that we're unaware of, like maybe there are still more secret spoilers, which I doubt. I don't want to like get my hopes. I think it was more likely that this dude was like just didn't realize that we knew everything, because then they did the live stream and then they talked about all the rules and stuff and like the interactions and stuff. So that's fine. Maybe there's like some rules that we don't know about yet, but maybe I still had that question on. I had a couple other questions on it, but I don't know. But yeah, so anyway, there may still be more to the Super Star Destroyer than we know yet. So we'll have to see. I'm gonna try and make it to Gen Con this year. If they do an early SSD release, I'll bring you obviously a first look at it. But I don't know. Hope it's out before then, which will actually make the Gen Con tournament really interesting. All right, let's see. Do you think we will ever see an Armada scale ground combat game? X-Wing, Legion, Armada? No. An Armada scale? No. Armada scale is absurd. I mean, we have a Super Star Destroyer that's the size of the island of Manhattan. So no, I don't think, not an Armada scale. What I would like to see, and I don't think we will see anytime soon, is a 10mm or 15mm scale game, which is literally the scale of X-Wing as a ground game. That's the ground game I always wanted. I like Legion, but I wish Legion were in the same scale as X-Wing, because X-Wing does not equal Legion. They're in vastly different scales. Like an X-Wing fighter is this big, but in Legion, an X-Wing fighter would be this big. So, let's like 10 times the scale, or 7 times the scale, or something like that. So, but X-Wing, if X-Wing were to be on the ground, you would have, instead of having individual troopers, you would have like groups of troopers on these tiny little bases. And it's actually one of the games that I have coming is going to be kind of like that. It's called Joan of Arc, Time of Legend. And that one's like a 15mm war game that has, like, instead of the dudes being this tall, the dudes are like that tall. And that means you can also get like really big, epic like castles and big units. Because I want a freaking AT-AT on the battlefield. I want multiple AT-ATs marching down on Echo Base. And I'm not able to get that. And that's a bummer. But they won't do that because that would be a direct competitor with Legion. And I don't think they'll ever do that. But I would love that. Do I think there will ever be a Scum faction for Legion? I don't think it would be called Scum and Villainy, but there may be a Scum-esque faction, or at least sub-factions. I think we might see the Hutt Cartel as a faction. That's a possibility. The thing is, though, Legion is really a war game, and so I don't really view a lot of the criminal underworld as having proper armies. There are some exceptions to that, but a lot of the stuff that you would want to see from Scum and Villainy doesn't really, in my opinion at least, doesn't seem to fit itself very well into a proper army. Like if if you had like Scum like you do in X-Wing, right? You're gonna have what, like Bosk and IG-88 and Boba Fett and all these people aren't gonna be able to fill out a whole army. And so unless, now granted, if Legion has a smaller format game like a King of the Hill type thing, then you can use them that way. Or if they have like an elite battle or like a gladiator combat mode where you just pick a handful of minis and build a really tiny army based on elite units, almost like a kill team, then Scum would work really well for that. But as far as like all your core units and your special forces units, and like these are proper military, you have to have a standing army to have basically a presence in Legion, and most of the aspects of Scum and Villainy do not have that. So if you were going to do that, it might have to be somebody like Black Sun or Crimson Dawn or the Hutt Cartel, as opposed to just saying generic Scum and Villainy. Now, I wouldn't mind in a non-aligned, faction. So, like, units that can go in anywhere. Like, I would have liked to see bounty hunters work that way. And, by all means, maybe they can. Like, the Boba Fett we see for the Empire could be, a long-term contract Boba Fett. Like, he has been working for the Empire so long, this is the version of him for the Empire. But I would like to see more, like, up-for-hire versions that can be hired by the Rebels or can be hired by other stuff. Maybe their cost goes up depending on what faction you put them in. If you have the Separatists hire Boba Fett, it's probably an extra 10 points. But if you have the Rebels hire Boba Fett, maybe it's an extra 40 points because it's so far off the type of work that he normally does. So that's interesting. After getting the X-Wing core set, which expansions are best to buy? I mean, there's not that many available for each individual faction. So stick with the 2.0 factions, the ones in the black package. And stick with the 2.0 factions and just buy like one of each for your chosen faction, and then you can play on hyperspace. There's not as much out yet. Like I haven't done a what to buy first for X-Wing and 2.0 because there hasn't really been that much stuff. But I'm probably going to have to do that by the time Wave 5 comes out. So that's going to be an interesting one. That's something I'll have to do. All right. Why do you think FFG has slacked on Armada content? It's simple. It's because it's not as high a priority. It's not one of their biggest sellers. And while our community is passionate and we do make a lot of noise, we're not representative of the larger consumer base that FFG targets. It's like if you had a room full of 1,000 people and you had to feed them all, and you knew everybody would be happy with beans and rice, but you had like 3 or 4 people saying like, dude, we want hot dogs. And another guy goes, yeah, I want hot dogs. And then the third guy goes, dude, hot dogs are the best. And the fourth guy's like, dude, I have an entire YouTube channel talking all about hot dogs. And then so the same 4 people start an echo chamber telling you like, hot dogs, dude, hot dogs. But then when you actually ask the other 996 people, like most of them don't care about hot dogs. As a matter of fact, maybe a lot of them would rather not have hot dogs. And so that's kind of like the analogy for Armada. While we're a passionate group, this game is not as appealing to the larger player base, at least when you compare it to games like X-Wing. Legion kind of surprised me as much because I didn't realize how much of a fan base there was for the hobby aspect of games because I had not come from a 40K background. So that one has reached a whole different demographic. But X-Wing is a lot more, it's a much cheaper core set. So it's more approachable from a brand new consumer standpoint, whereas Armada isn't. And the Superstar Destroyer was supposed to be out by now. It was supposed to be out a few months ago. So in theory, had everything gone according to plan, we would have gotten our new expansion in like March. And now we would be playing it. We would be in that new wave, like, hey, let's let's buy our SSD and let's be playing it, for this next month or so. And then come in May, maybe, we'll have a new announcement. If not May, then August, maybe. June, July, August. So we have like a 3 or 4 month window to just kind of play around with the SSD before we get a new wave announced. Plus, we already have the campaign Rebellion in the Rim that was announced at Adepticon, and in theory, the SSD should have been out by Adepticon. So we would have had no outage. We would have had everything kind of overlapping everything else had it gone according to plan. But the fact that the SSD had that big slowdown has been really put a damper on things. Cannot wait for the Clone Wars and Legion. That's going to be something else. It's going to be amazing, and I am dreading all of the painting I'm going to have to do. It's going to be a lot of painting. Let's see. How do you feel about the BattleTech universe? I don't really know anything about the BattleTech universe. It's got walking mechs like MechWarrior kind of, but I don't know. That's all I know, and I might even be wrong. What ships do you think will be in the starter kit for Clone Wars Armada? I talked about this a little bit in my Armada speculation video, where we kind of just talked about the Clone Wars, but I would hope they tone it down a little bit and do it just one ship per faction, just to bring the cost down. I would hope that whatever they do, they bring the cost down, because $99 is too much for a core set to get somebody into a brand new game where they could just go to Legion and get 8 whole units, as opposed to Armada, where you get, if you're the Imperial player, you get 1 unit. For your one factor. But basically, you get in the Armada core set, you get 3 units that you can activate. 3 unit activations, split amongst 2 people. Whereas you get 8 split amongst 2 people in the Legion core set. You get your two troopers for each side, your support for each side, and your commander for each side. So you're getting a whole lot more, playable, usable units. So I would hope they tone that down a little bit. I would like to see one ship, like a Venator and whatever the main, cruiser destroyer type ship that the Separatists use. One of their most common ones. I'd like to see one of each of those in the starter, because those are going to be the most common that you see fielded. The Venators are probably going to be very, very common. So it's fine for them to have a Venator expansion also. This way you get some Venator cards in the starter, and then you get something else in the expansion. Can I increase my volume? Maybe. Let me check. I don't know. I can get a little closer to the mic. We talked about Endgame already, and no spoilers, please. But yeah, it was the greatest movie I've ever seen. Granted, I'm still coasting on that post-movie high right now, but my all-time favorite movie right now. Now, once I calm down and look at it with a more clear head, it may just settle into my top 10 or something like that. But it's at number 1 right now. Oh, man. All right. Let's see. Look at some more questions here. But yeah, so I do hope it's only one of each ship for their if they do a starter. Now we don't know for sure they'll do a new core set, but I think realistically they will do a core set. It would be kind of cool if they did a Separatist core set and a Republic core set. That would be awesome for Star Wars Armada. I don't think they'll do that though, because they want to appeal, from a business perspective. I think you want to appeal to a dad and his kids on the side, walking in a store and be like, hey kids, should we buy this game to bring home and play? And then you buy one box, you take it home, you can actually play a game. Because if you do a Separatist core set, you're just going to have your one ship, and and you're not going to actually be able to play somebody else. So you have to buy 2 core sets to play. Even though granted they'd be cheaper and that would make sense for the existing player base, you don't have to market a new product for the existing player base. They're already on board. We are already going to buy it no matter what they do. That being said, so I do think it's a pretty good chance we'll see a Separatist core set with something for each side. The most realistic way to reduce the cost is to have only one ship per side, and maybe less squadrons. We don't really need, 6 TIE fighters and 4 X-Wings? We could cut that down to like maybe 4 Vulture droids and 2 ARC 170s or something like that, like a smaller subset of the game, and hopefully maybe somewhere close to half the price if we can manage it to really get people involved. That would be ideal. So let's see. Faction core sets might be a mistake. It might be. I think, for the reasons I explained. I think I think it'd be great because a lot of people, I tell a lot of people, one core set doesn't give you really enough of everything. Like, you're not getting enough dice to play the game in a single core set. So if you were new to Armada and you wanted to buy like this core set plus that core set, well, you'd still also be getting an extra maneuver dial because those fall apart, an extra range ruler, an extra set of dice, an extra of those core components that honestly you'll probably need anyway. But yeah. Do you think they will sneak in the release for Star Wars Outer Rim by May 4th? Well, Star Wars Outer Rim is supposed to be out in May, so Star Wars Outer Rim absolutely could be out for May the 4th. Can someone explain to me why the Max Rebo Funko Pop does not have his keyboard? I have the answer for you, Mr. Carl Duty. How you doing? I think the answer for that is they want you to buy the deluxe version that also has the keyboard. It's a marketing thing. Buy Max Rebo, and then in 6 months, at the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, buy Max Rebo with his keyboard. It's to get more money out of you, so you have to buy it twice. All right. Have I played Nemesis again lately? Not lately. I think the last time I played it was maybe 3 or 4 months ago. I love it, and I was just talking about it the day before yesterday. We're going to try and get another game going soon, but haven't been able to, because that's one of the games I think it plays really, really well, with the max number of people. So if we can get 5 players, it'll play a lot better. And I'm really looking forward to getting a 5-player game of Nemesis going again, because having played it a couple of times with 2 and then 3 and then eventually 5, 5 was the best. If the Rebels were to get a huge ship, I think if they were going to do that, they would probably pull from Legends. I understand that there is, cases of the Rebels using a Lucre Hulk, or and then there's cases in the Legends of the Rebels stealing Super Star Destroyers, and they had some kind of after the fall of the Empire. There were stories of them getting, I think, a couple. I'm not sure if that's all Legends or not, but. I don't think they're going to go with something like that that's not as well known or recognizable. I think if the Rebels got one, they'd probably go with that big Mon Calamari Viscount. But I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll go... but it could be. It could be the Dornian gunship as maybe a medium or large based flotilla. That would be really cool. Because Dornian gunship, they did say that they wanted to focus on the most, the primary timeline, the stuff that's canon. And Dornian gunship is something they've got to do at some point. So, again, but it's too small to be a small base ship. I mean, it's half the size of a CR-90. So, I think flotilla is the obvious way you do Dornian gunship. But you don't want them to just be a little support ship like the Gazantes and stuff. You want them to have some firepower. Maybe you give them a bigger base. Maybe you do. That's what I think. I don't know. Let's see. Do you think we'll see probe droids for Legion? I think that's an excellent idea. Especially if we're going to get IG-88 some point. And considering we have Boba Fett and Bosk on the way, I think the rest of the Bounty Hunter crew are a given, so I'm sure we'll probably see IG-88 at some point. And I think IG-88 could have some cool droid interactions. And so, just like how droid troopers are going to be a new thing in the Clone Wars, any new kind of interactions that droids end up having, probe droids could potentially benefit from or suffer from, so that's going to be interesting. Do you think they will release the MC90? I think the Radis is an MC85, so I'm not sure what the MC90 is, unless that's the Viscount that we were just talking about, like the huge ship. Someone tried to tell you the GR75 was the same size as the YT1300. No, they're in the same scale in that they're smaller than most capital ships, but that's about the closest scale you can get. All right, you guys, I am going to go ahead and wrap things up and probably go watch some TV and turn in for the night. So I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me. Thank you for all of the questions, and we will talk more soon. So I will catch you guys later. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.